Nitin. So far, we touched upon your startup journey at ShapeCrunch and your deep knowledge and insights into what health tech has done so far and how it will go forward. And I think that begs the next question is for any early stage startup in health tech space, what does it entail to do a startup in health tech in India?
Okay.
And my first question on that front is, when you were early in your journey, which is almost about 4 or 5 years ago now, what were some of the key challenges you faced, and how did you go about resolving those?
Okay. So first of all, the biggest challenge that any healthcare startup faces, as I mentioned, that innovation can only happen when you bring people of different background together. So, I would advise for every healthcare startup to find doctors. You definitely need doctors to work out with. And that's where I saw that was my biggest challenge, because when you are like, I was like 25 or 26 at that stage. And when I used to reach out to doctors, because I'm an engineer, it was a bit difficult, because right now, there is no good way where doctors and engineers can interact and, resolve the problems, what is happening. So that is basically, that was my biggest problem, that finding the right doctors and finding the people who, you can work with is actually a big challenge. And if you clearly see that, nobody's going to give you the consultancy for free. And that's where I faced, but still, we found a couple of people who were able to help us out, who were able to give their time in making something new. So that is the first thing, that I would say, that find really good people, really good doctors who can help you out. And another challenge that we faced, in fact, was that, in healthcare, the biggest challenge is that there are a lot of geographical barriers. If you develop something in one country or even in one place, and that has to be there in some other country or even in other state as well, that becomes a big challenge. For example, if I develop something in New Delhi, and I have to go to, and if I have a network of doctors in Delhi, the first thing when I'm going to Mumbai, the first thing any Mumbai person would ask, who you have in Mumbai, who is using your technology. And and the Western countries or some other country becomes a whole new ball game, where when you have already developed something in one country, they will ask you for the research in their country. So these are some of the challenges. It's not like Uber or some app which continuously grow and expand. In healthcare, you have to show evidence at little stage, and in every country, in every place, where you have to show that this is what we achieved and this is what it works. And the parameters and sometimes the preferences are very unclear. And if you are in a product space where there are no fixed quantitative measures which can measure that which product is better, then you are in a big mess, because then you don't have anything to compare with. And then it only becomes a preference of the patient and doctor, which gives a very large sales cycle, that which one is good, which one is not good. So that these are some of the challenges which we actually faced.
And like, what were so these were the challenges you faced from a perspective of doctor relationship or trust and so forth. What were some of the key technical challenges you had to solve? Because in health tech, I'm sure it's a exponentially harder problem and a multidisciplinary problem. What were some of those, and how did you solve them?
Oh, there were many challenges, because first of all, like I can just tell you, the machines that we were actually printing on, they were not made to print flexible materials. So we had to design our own nozzle, which can actually increase, make the process much better and decrease the time, and all the different things that we did tinkered around. And second thing was regarding the app testing as well. We had to do a couple of trials with that. Like with, you can say, on in our own team, and then the product final, when the product came out, the whole clinical research, which the whole process which went in, and we never actually built that, how to write a research article and all. So we had to do all that. First, when we got one research grant, I didn't know how to write a research proposal. So all these multidisciplinary things came along the way. But what we actually realize is that these are not something which we actually, technicality, as an engineer, we didn't face a lot of challenges. The only challenge that we face is that in our own field is that especially the hardware field, for example, 3D printing, it didn't grow as fast as we expected. So that's where, that's where the biggest challenge is, when you rely on some industry and it doesn't grow as fast as you expected, and you're dependent on it, then you actually feel, that oh, we gambled on something, and now it's going slow. So, but I hope, things would move fast ahead, and then the whole game would change. So I think that was the only challenge, but technically we think that so far we didn't have much challenges.
Right. So actually, that's pretty cool. So for anybody who doesn't know, these guys developed their own 3D printers from raw material and tools and equipment from the market, and did it at a cost 5x cheaper than the market product, which
Yeah.
is in itself a phenomenal achievement. So uh, hustle is, I think what you're saying is you have hustled through a lot of the challenges.
Yeah, exactly. So you can say that, being engineers, technology was never a problem for us, because we were always looking into, how we can, play around with the things. But yeah, rest of the things, like, as I already mentioned, those were the major challenges for us. Even for writing a research proposal is like still a bigger challenge than, assembling a 3D printer for us.
Right. Cool. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Nitin. I was just so I have two questions. The first one is a very quick follow-up question from a point that you just mentioned about talking to doctors at the very early stage and making sure you loop them in. So what model did you follow? Did you bring them on as advisors, or did you just consult with them on and off? So what model do you think works best for any early stage health tech company?
See, that depends a lot on what kind of, like that depends. That's a lot of cultural thing, I would say. For example, if you are in US, doctors would definitely ask you, like for equity. While in India, they would probably say that, why don't, we work together, and then you maybe give the product at an affordable price, or maybe, you give for the, you give some consultation charges, because their, equity right now is still not considered very it's not considered good, because there is a lot of chances startup might fail. So see, that's actually a cultural thing, that depends a lot on where you are, which doctor you're talking to, and what is the doctor interest. We have also worked with, and some doctors are just interested in research, and they would say that let's do some research together in this. And some doctors say that we need equity. Some doctors would say that we would need some consultation fees, because see, ultimately it's the doctor's time which is going, which is very, very valuable. I think, we got lucky, because whichever doctor we met, they were interested in developing something new. And interestingly, they didn't even ask for even the equity. Even they didn't even ask for the consultation fees. They just wanted to do something new in this field, and I think that's where it worked out well. But I would say, if I mean, that depends, whatever the arrangement is. If anything can work out, that is great.
Awesome, thanks. So the idea is to talk to a lot of doctors and then find the ones which might be the right fit for your
Exactly.
set. Awesome.
Exactly.
And then my last question, Nitin, is for somebody who is new and entering the health tech space, what advice would you have for them?
Okay. Interesting. So see, I think, if someone, as a person who is entering into healthcare space, my biggest advice would be that a lot of people, if that depends on what kind of entrepreneur you want to be. A lot of people want to solve a problem which exists, but they don't actually think from the business point of view. And that's where I saw that most of the mistakes happen. They don't consider that, if this is a product, how many people are going to use this? Is the market big enough? Is the market small enough? And that's where I see, that a lot of the entrepreneurs fall in trap of, there is a common trap of problem solving, where you love to solve a problem, but you don't consider that, even if, and especially the harder problems, because you take it as something which is challenging, but you don't understand that, whether it is challenging, but consider the number of people and the market and the impact that you are going to have. Is it big enough, or is it small enough? Because if you plan to make it a business, and you plan to go to a venture capitalist or ask for funding, then go for a very big market. It might be a smaller problem, but it would be actually solving a problem of the masses. Just to give example, it's like I always say, like right now, we have drugs for very small problems. Okay, but still we don't have any any good drug which can instantly solve the problem of diarrhea or something which are very third world problems, because a lot of research happens in the first world countries. And when we talk about like countries like India, where these problems, people who are actually dying of diarrhea or jaundice or lack of, consider the problem just lack of excess of good water. These are very massive problems. These are very, very massive problems which can actually solve a lot of healthcare issues. But a lot of entrepreneurs actually try to go in a very in the problem space, which are actually very, very niche, but they are very exciting because those are hard. So for anyone, who is going to invest, or who is anyone looking for making a big business, that becomes the whole case challenge, that whether this is something which is good enough to solve the problem of the masses, or is it just going to help out a few of the people. So that's where I see that a big lag, and that's where I see that this is the common trap to fall in.
Right. So, Nitin, actually, that's pretty interesting. So, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. You touched upon funding, that funding is an issue. And you also touched upon research grants, so which I believe would be to secure funding or seek funding.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the ways within the Indian ecosystem for a healthcare startup to seek funding, obtain funding, non-dilutive funding as well as dilutive funding?
Okay.
What are
Okay.
some of the avenues there?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, first I would say that the best part is, if you know about BARAC, it's by government. It's a biotechnology research and innovation grant. So I would say every health tech entrepreneur should apply for that. We received that grant. The grant was given for one of their research proposal for Spurge. So we received that grant. There are multiple types of grants in this, for good electronics projects, for good biotechnology projects. So for BARAC, definitely, every entrepreneur should actually try for that. Second thing, even there are a lot of inter-country grants which are going on between US and India, between Israel and India. So those are also another thing to apply for. Then there are further research grants by the different medical colleges, which also can be applied for. So I would say that the first research should be done by the grants, and that's where especially health tech entrepreneurs have a good edge, because they can get it very easily as compared to rest of the fields.
Right. And then for early stage companies, how do they reach out to potential investors? What are some of the nuances? We have a mechanistic understanding. There is lots of material online, but within the Indian ecosystem, what are some of the nuances for a health tech in India, Indian investor, or for an investor's scenario? Like, what are some of the key points that a new startup should keep in mind?
So I would say, reaching out to investors, the first thing that you should do is that, I would say that this mistake I also made, that you should reach out to investors, from the day one. You should always see that what actually investors are thinking about this market and what they actually think about the space. And then start figuring out, what are the different things actually they would need, because, every investor would want that this become like a unicorn business. And what investors from other countries are also thinking. So in this space, especially in healthcare, it doesn't work like where you grow in one country and it's going to be very big in all the countries. So going global in healthcare is extremely difficult. So that should be considerable, that what are the markets you are going to target, what is the different need. So here the first thing is that the market research is very, very important. And that's where I see that entrepreneurs should research. You should invest their time in before actually putting their energy into the venture, and they should reach out to investors from different countries just before going in. And second thing is that in healthcare, a lot of the M&As are also very common. So I would say that tactically, if they can reach out to right investors who can actually become their partners or advisors, that can be really, really good. Because sometimes what happens is that you are approaching someone and you say that why don't you invest in my company, and it turns out that he can become a distributor. So then your whole problem of distribution is solved. Someone you're reaching out and he becomes your, say, some hospital who is already doing research and that, then definitely is going to invest. So I would say that there are a lot of connections which can happen during the initial time. And if you reach out to the right people initially, that can save you, that can save you a lot of trouble. And because this is a space where a lot of, because here this space requires a collaborative action. This is not something which is competitive, but because there are very few people doing research in that area, so you won't find a lot of competition. You will in fact find people who are looking to collaborate on that thing. So that's where I see, it's about finding the tactical fit instead of just reaching out to the financial investors. This is more like if you can reach out to some strategic investors from day one, that would be much better approach.
Great, thank you. And another quick question on that note is that for a founder, he or she has to handle so many aspects. You said collaboration, talking to doctors, talking to patients. What are some of the initial things a founder should focus on? Just like one or two or three things that you think are very crucial that the founder should focus on.
Okay. See, that depends a lot on, see, that varies from business to business, I would say. That is being honestly, I'm telling you. But I would say that the founder should focus first on the team, and second, that depends. Second, if he's focused, say, if the funding is sorted out, then he should focus on the product. But otherwise, first he should focus on whether he can get the funds for this or not. So
Great.
team, and team and funding, I would say, is the main thing which is required, initially, because I mean, I have personal reasons for that, because I know that this was the ideal mistake that a lot of founders make. They make something, and it turns out that that has already been done in some other place, and that has not worked out. And then that person doesn't get investment. Then they spend another 5 years. So I would say that first, and the point is that with the investors and with the fundraising process, you're able to do all kind of market research, because then their analysts are already present over there who are doing all kind of research for you, and they're going to tell you, that why you should or why you shouldn't jump into this.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks very much.
So Nitin, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us this weekend for this session. It was really good talking to you and understanding from your perspective how the landscape in the health tech domain is evolving. We at Venturewoods want to thank you, and we wish you all the best with your product ShapeCrunch. All the best for all your future endeavors, and we hope you achieve whatever you are out to achieve. Thank you so much once again.
So Nitin, one thing in as well is that if anybody wants to reach out to you for advice, how can they reach out to you?
Oh, they can directly email me. I'm very much active on my email or even LinkedIn profile. My email ID is nitin@shapecrunch.com. So they can definitely reach out to me. And from my side, thanks for giving me this opportunity to share my views. I hope I hope my views would be useful for a lot of people. And I would say you're doing amazing work, and continue.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, Venturewoods, we are trying to bring more knowledge out to everybody, and I hope everybody benefits from it as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.